I think where they get blindsided is what we've been talking about all show is they just were comfortable. The numbers were just increasing. Their strategy was working in their mind because the values were going up, right? And well, the problem is like, you know, with no planning and not really thinking about what taxes might look like in their future. So like when we sit down, whether you're 55, 65, we can show you like what your taxes are going to look like when you're 75 and you got to turn on RMDs. So whether you're going to have to at some point, if you're most of us, fortunately, unfortunately, have saved the majority of our money in what's called a tax deferred account or a tax deferred bucket. That's your IRA or your 401k or 403b at work or whatever it is. This is money that you've never paid taxes on. And so, this money grows tax deferred. You get a little bit of a tax break, off your income taxes currently. But then later on in retirement, whenever you take that money out first of all, prior to 59 and a half, you're going to pay a 10% penalty plus tax. So you want to wait until you're over 59 and a half to avoid that 10% penalty. But when you start taking money out, it's taxable income. So it basically goes to the bottom line on top of your pension, on top of your Social Security, on top of your wife's Social Security, her pension. Maybe you got some rental income coming in, some dividend and interest coming in from your banks and savings accounts, or maybe you have a regular brokerage account, and you just sold a house, secondary property, you got capital gains tax. Now that's counted as income. Like all these different kind of storms and scenarios can hit you where it propels you and pops you up into a different tax bracket, right? Well, once we're in retirement, we're collecting Social Security, we're on Medicare. There's a 2-year look back on Medicare. So they're going to look at your income 2 years prior and say, okay, we're going to base your premiums. It's all income based. So
Right.
the more income you make, the higher your premiums are going to be. Right. And then also, you got to be very careful about your Social Security strategy. When you take Social Security, how you take it, what other income sources you have can be very detrimental. There's a lot of folks out there that are still paying money back to the government in penalties because they made a mistake with their Social Security timing. And so, you can't, please give us a call. If you haven't collected Social Security yet, you're thinking about it, or you're getting close to that 62 age, or you're thinking about turning on, please give us a call. Come in and see us, or we can even do it over the Zoom or the phone. Let's run a Social Security report for you, an optimization report. Let's sit down, look at your tax returns, let's evaluate everything and see what type, we want to make sure you're not going to pay that Social Security back in penalties. And, also we got to be, we want to be careful of the taxes on that, and as well as, increasing medical premiums. So it's all related. So, and so getting back to, you've created this big nest egg and you kind of got this nice number. I can think of a couple that I've been working with recently. They just kept deferring, and they had this awesome IRA, and they did really good with their investing. They weren't too conservative, which I want to talk about that in another show. Is people getting too conservative is really scary and a risk in itself, and we'll get into that later. But these people weren't. They had faith in the markets. They took risk. They invested for the long term, and their portfolio, their IRA, grew quite nicely. But now they've got this huge tax bubble, and they waited to come see me when they were like 73 years old, and like, oh my God, I got to start taking RMDs, and like, this is crazy. I don't want to take this money. It's a lot of money, and it's creating a ton of taxes, and it's, so getting out ahead of that is really important. So when I get to somebody like late 50s, early 60s, even mid 60s, and you don't have to take RMD until you're 75, 73. So I think if you're born in 1959 or prior, it's 73 is your required minimum distribution. And what that is, folks, is, basically, for lack of better terms, the IRS puts a gun to your head and says, whether you like it or not, you're going to pull money out of your IRA and you're going to pay us taxes. Your 401k, your 403b, you got to pull money out, whether you like it or not, and they're going to hit it with taxes. And it usually starts out, it's like that 4.5% range of your total value. So it could be a big number. Like, you saved $1 million, you're talking about having to take out 45, 50 grand on top, stacked on top of your social security and everything else, and that could propel you into a higher tax bracket. So we want to alleviate that if we can. We want to head that off at the pass as early as possible. We want to talk about Roth conversion schedules. We can show you a Roth conversion schedule and get you out of that situation, if we can. If you're born in 1960 or over, you're going to be 75 for RMD. So we have a little bit more time to work with you to get you into that more favorable tax position. So, we have a whole formula, we have a system, we have a schedule. This freedom plan process that we put in place, totally comprehensive. This is something that I've designed and put together over 30 years, and it works. So it's something that it's a proprietary process, and we've developed it over 30 years, and it's important. It works. And so we need to basically, like we've said, if we can reduce that burden of taxes in the future, reduce risk and reduce fees and expenses, it's going to be a win-win-win all the way around for you.
What do you make of, you mentioned Social Security in there, and so we've talked in this segment about Social Security taxation. What do you make of the possible changes looming here within the next 7 to 10 years as it pertains to Social Security and the possible insolvency?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a big concern. It's scary for, I think, some of us younger folks. It's completely insolvent in the year 2035, I believe.
Mhm.
And so that's not too far around the corner.
Well,
And
9 years.
so they may what are they going to do? Like, they may reduce benefits. They may make people wait longer in order to collect their full benefit. Right now, most everybody is 67. For somebody like you and I, Jim, and I'm in my 50s. I'm sorry, I don't want to date you, but if you're in your 40s, maybe, I don't know. But for us guys, like, they may say to us, you're not getting Social Security till you're 70. There could be some things that change for us younger folks. I wouldn't alarm people that are like already collecting Social Security. Like, I don't think too much is going to change for you guys. But there's certainly starting to be a lot more people in the wheelbarrow than there are pushing. And so that's starting to be a concern. There's less workers than there are baby boom, like the baby boomer population that's going to be collecting is astronomical, and so there's a concern there. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Unfortunately, politicians kind of just keep kicking the can down the road because it's not popular to talk about tax increases, right? So it's not popular to talk about cuts, so they're going to do whatever they got to do and say to get reelected. But we know the country's 37, $38 trillion in debt. We know that Social Security is in trouble. So there's only one way to really alleviate that, right? Is to either spend less, which I don't see that happening anytime soon.